Okay, all right.
You're on the clock. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Chair, Scott Orth, General Services. I want to thank the Board of Supervisors and the County Administrator and everyone else, for that matter, for showing up to hear our little presentation today. I do want to say that there are several people in the room today, not because they're so much interested in what I have to say, but because they're invested. They've invested a lot of their own time and intellect and all the other things in what we're trying to accomplish. So I want to thank everyone back there, and Annie, thank you for coming today as well. When I was first hired on, Mr. Norris suggested that once I got my feet wet, that I might want to take a look around and see if I couldn't find some places where perhaps we might be able to build some economies and some efficiencies into the system. I took that mandate seriously and began to do a systematic survey of our talent pool, of our equipment pool, and all the other things, trying to kind of figure out what we had, the skill sets to do, coupled with the equipment, the physical equipment, machinery, and et cetera. And by doing that, I was able to come up with a comparison, a comprehensive cost analysis based upon a 24-month trend line that we have established with the help of Central Accounting, Joe Ellen back here, with Mr. Edgar, and all the other professionals in the room. We have put together a 24-month trend line on how we've basically, as a department, General Services, has done major construction, renovation, restoration, repairs, and et cetera. The outcome of this little study has been that we outsource in a couple of places quite a bit, and it's quite expensive. So what I'm going to propose, and I'm just going to be upfront about it, and I'll give you the rationale and the justification for it in the following. I would like to propose some modifications to our human resources infrastructure at General Services. We don't have a plumber. We have major construction projects going on all the time, and we have huge problems, like, for instance, the $141,000 pipe collapse out at the jail, that we've had to outsource everything. And the major reason for that isn't that we don't have cameras or trenching equipment or people that know how to do these kinds of things. We don't have a master plumber, nor do we have a license. I think as a county, as involved in all of this that we are, we probably need a plumbing license, a master plumber's license, just to be able to conduct routine inspections of what we have, if not take on some of the more expensive projects. So from our perspective, which parallels our budgeting process, I have two big things going. I have capital improvement projects, of which we have many right now, big construction projects. We've got 1914 coming online. We've got the courthouse renovation upstairs and several other things. You'll see a list of them in a minute. But then I also have ongoing operational costs, and that makes for a busy day for everyone around here. So basically, I'd like to create a master plumber, or invite you to allow us to put a master plumber position in place, and I can explain more about that later. I'd also like to create one more electrician position, and I'll tell you why. If you see those books right there, the book to the left that she's showing you right now, so we have two electricians. Now, anyone who's familiar with how the trades work will understand that electricians often work in pairs, not only because one person's pulling Romex and the other person's spooling it out, or someone's up in the air and someone's down low, or someone's metering things, or someone's pulling wire while the other one's on the panel. It's a safety thing as well when you're working with electricity to have more than one person there. What I have now is the perfect storm when it comes to electricians. I've got 9 or 10 CITP projects going right now, 6 of which require complete wiring, which doesn't mean just pulling wire. It means hanging panels, it means putting in fuses, it means putting in light fixtures, wiring all the lights, the electrical for heating and plumbing, and heating and HVAC, and so on and so forth, and the list goes on and on. We're going to, and I'll get to that a little bit later. The third thing I'd like to create, and this is not an FTE. What I talked about with Mr. Edgar about how we might be able to do this is to take an existing maintenance personnel, bump them up a couple of steps, maybe $5,000, and create a skilled trades technician. Carpenters, plumbers, electricians, in the industry from which I come, the heavy construction industry from which I come, there is always a floater, there's always a helper, people who weld pipeline, people who operate cranes, there's always someone there to operate as a support person. This wouldn't cost us very much at all, but it would allow us in-house the opportunity to provide much needed support for our skilled tradespersons, and that person could go and float concrete one day, help sweat pipes the next day, do the measuring and cutting while the carpenter's up in the air on a scaffold, that kind of thing. That would build incredible efficiencies into our day-to-day operations. Next. Keep going to the next slide. What I'm trying to do here I'm trying to mitigate to the greatest degree I possibly can things like downtime. What we have here, you can see the 1914 these are our capital current construction remodel CIP projects. There's 10 of them on here, I think. The ones that are in green at the top will require at least 2 months of electricians, plumbers, and carpentry, but electricians and plumbers for sure. The ones that are lit up in blue are going to require, for at least 2 months, full-time electricians. The other 3 is just kind of a jumble. Next, please. So what you can see here, this is any given week. I just used the week of April 24th to April 28th. What I want you to do here is to juxtapose the CIP projects that I just showed you, which require the full-time and attention of our electricians and hopefully a plumber, so we're not outsourcing this kind of thing. This is, I think if I read correctly, 69 work orders in 1 week, requiring the attention of electricians and so on and so forth at the jail or wherever else. What happens here is really kind of 3- or 4-fold. First of all, every time you pull in let's say you have an electrician pulling Romex through the studded wall that's been set up, right? And all of a sudden, there's a work order or an emergency. My electricians are pulled off a CIP job, now they're off in operations somewhere. Meanwhile, there is a good possibility that waiting for that Romex to get pulled, I've got the folks that hang drywall, then tape it and paint it and hang all the other things and stuff. When that Romex isn't pulled, that drywall can't be hung. I've got a whole entire train wreck behind me waiting for the electricians to come back to the CIP project. Well, chances are they might not be able to do that very quickly because in any given week they have 69 calls, more than half of them to the jail. What I really need is an electrician that I can station up in the North Campus. That would be communications, public works, and the jail. Not only would that electrician be able to take care of the incredible mass of operational things that happen constantly in this book of work order, well, if you look right there, I've got 2 electricians' work order books. One of them is for the jail. How many is that? 399 work orders over 2 years?
399.
399 over 2 years. That other book is for all the other 26 buildings for electricians. And that one's, what, 385?
384.
Over 2 years.
384.
384. So 700 some odd work orders, over half of them are for the jail alone, for just electricians. And it's all documented. Every work order is in those books. It's a 2-year trend line. Yes, ma'am.
And you weren't here, but Tom was. Did we not, at one time, have a full-time person at the jail to do something?
We did. Originally, when I came on, there was an electrician stationed at the jail and then downtown somewhere. What we found is most jobs are 2-man jobs, so they end up together all the time regardless. I mean, it's a dangerous field to be doing that one man by yourself, trying to pull wire a light. So they're together all the time. It's, more or less for safety reasons, but it's just what the job entails.
For instance, the parking arm job that we're doing right now, it requires both of my electricians to be down there full time just to get this whole conduit thing and all the pipe pulled and the wire pulled and work with IT on the fiber piece and all the other things. I won't beat a dead horse, but so we've been outsourcing plumbing stuff for a long, long time. Over the last 24 months, and I couldn't believe my eyes, so I had Joellen down in Central Accounting double-check this for me to make sure, because I was never a math major in school. In fact, over 24 months' time, because we don't have a master plumber, we don't have that license, we have outsourced in 2 years, plumbing services alone, $500,000. I have the invoices to prove it. If this is all data-driven, by the way. There's no conjecture. It's all factual numbers. I've had it double-checked personnel-wise by Mr. Edgar, Central Accounting, and all the other things to make sure I had it right. I think that makes the case for at least considering. The other thing with a master plumber license, when we're taking on these big CIP projects, and we will have ongoing things, one thing the 2-year trend line does spell out for you is that we have collapsing pipes under places like the jail and et cetera. We have pipes that are just like that underneath all kinds of other buildings, and it's not just a matter of if, it's just going to happen. We can pay $141,000, or we can have the master plumber. We can dig trenches. We can do all the concrete. We can do everything except have the license to set the pipe on the proper fall, to make sure the welds are correct, and to have the license. When we have license and go to pull permits, when I try to do that, it takes 3 weeks. Master plumber with a license goes downtown and does it and pulls them in 1 day. Gets me a 3-week head start on these projects, and they start backing up really fast. Here you go. That right there is plumbing alone, $500,000. Those are the vendors that we've used. Now, I want you to look at that top line, and you'll see labor. Labor is always the top cost on all this stuff. Well, when we're talking labor costs, we can also compare that to wages. And it's really quite the story then. So if you look at this graph right here, you can see how wages spike the cost of everything we do in terms of plumbing. If you look at the blue lines, you'll see everything, and then all of a sudden you'll see the labor graph. Can you turn to the pie chart, please? This pie chart, I think, explains it a little more clearly. Now, this, mind you, this is not electrical, carpentry, or any of the other skilled trades. This is plumbing alone. Over the last 2 years, we've outsourced to the tune of $500,000. 71% of that, $500,000 over 2 years, has been labor. Now, I can replicate labor with a master plumber at a much lower cost. We get the license to boot, and we own the asset. Tom Alessio, whoever's in charge, Gary, whatever, any given day, we got a plumbing problem, they assign the master plumber, 1 phone call. We own it. Instead of paying retail and then more costs on top, travel costs and all the other things you can see, whenever we go to buy a piece of pipe, we get wholesale price, we go get it at wages. With the electricians, every time they leave a CIP project and go to the jail or someplace else, there's not only opportunity costs on what they could be doing, I'm left with no winning choice. I have to pick out which costs less, but either way it costs the county a lot of money because you got to figure windshield time, and we measured it from down here on this campus or anywhere down here out to the north campus. It's 20 minutes up and 20 minutes back. If you have 2 electricians in the car, it's that wage times 2 times 40 minutes. How many times do you do that a year? And you get no productivity, but you're still paying that wage. And it's like the meter is running the whole time. So you can see right here what I was talking about earlier. Next panel, please. Just cycle through these. This is what's in these books. I wanted you to see the sheer numbers on these invoices and these work orders, the number of work orders. Keep going.
This is just the sheriff's alone?
The 399 was just
99 work orders in 24 months for the sheriffs, for the jail alone. Yes, ma'am. Every single time we get started on something, we get a WO pulled for the jail. I mean, it's daily. Mr. Alessio can speak to that. He sends out work orders to me every single day, and it's amazing. Half of them are the jail every day. Over half of the work orders for electricians across a 2-year trend line, over half of them are for the jail alone.
That's got to just be all, is that all troubleshooting stuff?
Tom?
there is some PM stuff that goes along with it, but it's a bank of lights goes out, then we got to get out there and see why the bank of lights, those type of things, but those happen on a daily basis. The night shift sees it, we get the email, and we're out on it in the morning. But if those type, or, somebody stuck something in a plug and caught it on fire, and we got to trace that back and replace it. Yeah, it's all the time.
The other thing with this other electrician, we're behind. We're out of code. We're non-compliant right now because we have 2 electricians. We have 26 buildings and these arms and everything like that. Every one of these panels and outlets and boxes, and I think probably JR could speak to that a little more clearly if you have questions. They all have to be inspected and labeled. They actually have to have labels on them per city code and per state code to show that they have been inspected and passed by a licensed electrician. How far behind are we on that?
Yeah, we haven't done.
Years,
Yeah.
because we don't have anybody free to do it. So we're in a state of non-compliance with regard to labeling and inspection and with the code. And I think that, it's at least my fiduciary responsibility to let you know that. So that electrician that's up there working at North Campus, if they had any spare time, could be getting us caught up on compliance, on code compliance with inspections and labeling, and that kind of thing. Next, please. Oh, okay, that was back, I'm sorry. This is just would be the skilled trades assistant. This would be someone that really fills in the blanks. If you've ever been on a dam or a highway or built a house, and I've done all those things, sometimes you're standing on a ladder, and then you're standing there. You got to go back down the ladder, and you got to get this, and you got to get that, and you got to go back up and hang some softening, and then you got to go back down. When you have a complex task, like pouring concrete, sometimes the electrical thing where ladders and elevations are involved, it's nice to have a support person that's actually skilled and understands the language and understands the task at hand. It is a common practice in the private sector. Next,
Tell me again, Scott, how it wouldn't be a new FTE?
well, Mr. Edgar, would you like to speak to that, sir?
So when I've talked with Scott, the concept would be creating a position, but hopefully promoting from within would be the concept. So
Backfill?
and then not backfill that position. So it wouldn't be a net FTE ad, but it would be essentially
Probably
a higher class, maybe
change of,
pay grade or
pay grade.
two. Yeah. So it wouldn't be a net FTE ad. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
Scott?
This right here is just for the proposed position. So, and this is just kind of a proposed thing. I went over this loosely with Jeff. We just kind of, and Mr. Copley, we would sit down and talk about how this all worked. But just for argument's sake, I went kind of on the high side of this just so that my estimates would be reasonable. So for a year, a master plumber, compensation package 106, I think I'm seeing that correctly. Electrician, 102. The maintenance worker doesn't really add into that because we're not creating a new FTE, we're just creating a couple of extra classes and moving someone over. But if you take the wages of the master plumber times 2, and you get 212,000, the electrician times 2, and you get 204,000, so now you're 410,000 for the whole thing. Well, we're spending $500,000 on plumbing alone. I'm not even into the savings on electricians. I'm not into the savings on anything else. I'm telling you that if we do this, we can pay for both of those positions and still have $100,000 left over if everything else remained the same. That is to say, if the trend line, the means, the medians, remain true to form. I have every reason to believe they will, because it's not a lot of spiky spikes. There's 1 or 2. But along the operational trend line of the whole thing, it's a reasonably flat curve. We can expect to spend as much moving forward, pretty much, as we are looking back, which indicates to me that the county is undoubtedly not only in the savings of dollars, but it's an in-house operation. We get to call the shots. This doesn't figure materials, it's just labor. We're not paying hyper retail prices for thousands and tens of thousands of dollars of equipment rentals and pipes and wire and all this other stuff. We're getting our own wholesale price, and we're using our own operators and our own equipment. We actually have cameras, modern cameras that we can do planned preventive maintenance. We're paying for preventive maintenance for people to come out and run and camera our pipes, simply because we don't have a license and a trained person to do it.
Scott, you're very convincing. My question is, have we had a master plumber before, and have we had a plumbing license before in the past county?
My tenure,
Which is how long?
14 years.
Okay. Well, I mean, your numbers are what your numbers are, and I think they're very strong. I just, can you get the right person to do this? I mean, I don't know what we're up against trying to find somebody that has that level of expertise and getting a license. What's involved in getting a license?
Well, you have to go through a certification program. It doesn't necessarily have to be a union program. Local 347, IBEW Local 347 offers master electricians training. They have apprenticeship programs, and they also have master certificate programs where you go and get trained. There are master certificates around. I mean,
So will we hire that, or will we hire it and then train for it? That's what I don't understand.
I'd say we'll hire it.
We'll hire it.
Yeah, we'll hire the license. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll hire the person
the license and then...
and the person that goes with it.
And that, in essence, then gets you certified.
When they come on with, when we hire a licensed master plumber, that license comes with them. They will register their employment with the county, and then the license becomes, they become an agent of the county
Okay.
with regard to that license.
Like a lawyer or anything else, you bring your license.
You bring your license and hang that thing on the wall.
Got it. Thank you. That
Thank you, sir.
explains my question.
Yes, sir.
Before you, I think before you got here, you know, we had some internal discussions about pay scale, specifically for electricians. I won't even talk about the certified plumber piece of it, because this is something new, but, you know, we tried to hire journeyman electrician probably, 5, 6 years ago, I assume, and, you know, number one, the market right now and all the construction going on, as you probably know, I think there's a couple hundred journeymen that are here from out of state because most of all the journeyman electricians are working, as far as I know. So our pay scale at the time, the top end of our pay scale was the only way you could hire a journeyman electrician, because they were making, you know, 2 to 3 times as much as what our entry level was. So we had to adopt at least a policy of some sort that allowed us to bring especially skilled tradesmen, women in to the county at a higher scale, because that's because we couldn't hire anybody yet otherwise. I guess my point is, they come in licensed. This plumber, if the majority of the board runs through that, would come in licensed, ready to rock and roll. But this scale that you used here on the electrician, A19, and Jeff, maybe you can elaborate on it, but I only assume 67.9 as an entry, as a salary, is not going to get it. Those guys are making well over $100,000 a year that are working out of 347.
Yeah, I think the last electrician we brought in, we did an MOU with AFSCME, and Todd, I believe it was not at the top, but it was maybe at the 50th percentile of that range, which is probably, A19, probably close to 90 at the top, so it was probably around upper 70s, around 80. I know 2 before that we brought in at the top. So yeah, we have had to bring electricians in at a higher rate, at least mid, if not upper range, or at the top to...
So you can't hire them otherwise.
Exactly.
I assume it'd be the same way with the plumber. I would assume they're all working. I assume you'd go to the plumbers and steam fitters and probably try to get a journeyman master plumber right out of their hall, I would assume. I don't know. I mean, you wouldn't have to be a union, but I would assume that's where you're going to get the skill piece that you want.
Right, Local 33 has, as you well know, has that great modern certification set up down there with steam. They've got steam coefficients and all that kind of stuff. What we did, what Mr. Alessia and I did in conjunction with Mr. Edgar, was basically what we did was, without going top of scale or this or that or the other, we just used what is currently being used as the current hiring practice. And then, of course, where up and down on that scale we had to go would be at the discretion of HR and the Board of Supervisors. I wouldn't really have a lot to do with that personally, but I did use the scale that we've been hiring at as of now.
Okay.
And we really don't, I mean, like Tom said, there's a lot of people are working, so we really don't know till you go out and try to see what happens, if the board decides to go this route.
That's true, but I would suggest one thing. Coming out of the construction field myself, when buildings are done, they're done, and then you move to another job, and then you move and you move and you move. There's nothing quite like a steady, go-to-work every single day job when you're raising children, a job that has an IPERS retirement system, a job that offers some of the best health care in the industry, and the list goes on and on. I would suggest, ma'am, that we're not comparing apples to oranges with regard to the employment opportunity, but rather this outstrips your run-of-the-mill journeyman kind of lifestyle in a number of different ways. And believe me, people's radar, when it comes to tradespeople and union people like me, man, you're looking for that home job for sure, especially one that pays as well as this one does.
Okay.
Are there any further questions?
First of all, I'm always extremely reluctant to create new positions. I think you've made a good argument on why we should do it. For years and years and years, we've had 2 electricians. Since I've been here, I think we've had 2 electricians. So having said that, we've built a lot of new buildings since I've been here too. We've added a lot of maintenance. I mean, the jail's been added on. All of the courts expansions have all been added on. So clearly, we're not going to be able to continue, if we're going to do it internally, with the same number if we continue to add buildings and more work, so.
Well, sir, if you look at it from a CIP, and why don't you go ahead and tell them about our flagship project real quick. If you look at it from CIP, this is going to pay for itself every time we do something. If you look at it from an operational perspective, when we have that license, and what I'm trying to do is eliminate opportunity cost. I mean, that is a real cost. You don't put it in unless you're adding up wages. And by the way, I did just that. I've got wage scales for our workers for every single trade that we would anticipate our labor costs for that 1914 carpenter right there, and I'm happy to share that later. But Tom, why don't you just give him a quick one on carpenter?
Well, we're here to discuss why we're bringing these to your attention because of the 1914 project and my belief that we can do this in-house. If you see the first design up here, this was brought to us by OPN, and I believe they worked with, I wasn't quite in the picture as of yet, but they worked with Annie on a design. The cost was $4.9 million, and I believe it was $4.9 million due to a lot of HVAC reasons, fiber, those type of things, IT-related items. Their second proposal, which I then got involved with, was $5.2 million. Once again, a lot of their costs are HVAC and IT-related issues. And then I worked with Annie quite a bit, Annie Ewitz and her people. And my whole thing, the whole long, is we can use a lot of the existing structures over there. We don't have to demo this entire building and put it back up. It doesn't have to be that way. A lot of what's in place can be used. And I worked with Annie, and Annie said, this is what we need. So one of the big problems is in the center of the building is a mechanical room. It's got our fiber and an IT switch with 4 furnaces. And then this side of the building's got 7 furnaces. Well, OPM will come with you that we need to gut that whole HVAC system and start over to be energy efficient and what have you. I'm telling you that every furnace we have in that building is 5 years older or less of a 25-year lifespan. Brian Austin, his people put 3 brand new air handling units on top of that building less than a year ago of a 25-year lifespan. So why would I want to gut that? So as we're doing energy audits all over the county, we're not yanking every HVAC system out of them. We're making them energy efficient. We can do the same thing here. And what happens is we don't have a lot of ducting, a little bit of change. I think in the sobering center area, we might have to put a small air handling unit to do a little more ventilation. We were able to move the furnaces a small amount across the room to the west, and we will have a mechanical room where the IT switch and the fiber can be pulled back without splicing, and a huge cost of Scott and his people running this fiber to a whole nother part of the building with just a little bit of ductwork and him pulling that back at minimal cost. So talking with Annie, this is what we settled on. And I'm working with Gary Jordan and Brian. We've got quotes on every little thing. And if I can do the plumbing, if I can go in, there's a cave pipe in the middle of the parking lot right now. It's been that way for years.
What pipe?
A cave pipe, sewer pipe that feeds out to the street. Once a month we have to have Smith come in and clean it because it backs up. Obviously the building been empty. It hasn't been too bad lately. but when in use, I mean, it's a matter, we gotta have them in there once a month. With the master plumber, my people can dig a trench, my people can fill a trench and redo the parking lots. If I have a master plumber go in there and fix it. Now, the quote I have, just to repair that's $101,000, just to repair that. My people can do it for half that, you know, if we had a master plumber on hand. But my projection is that we can do this project for $2.9 million, which saves the county, you know, almost $2 million. And I'm telling you, I'll look everyone in the eye. I wouldn't set my people up to fail. And I believe in every one of them, and we can get this project done and do it right.
And that meets all the standards for broad lines, and, you know, we had to have that see-through for the sobering center,
so,
the crisis center, and all
Gail,
that
can
kind
you,
of thing.
can you please go back to the drawing we come up with? So if you see the nurses station, you see it starts nurses station, crisis center, and then the last one would be the sobering center. So the nurses station, it's a little easy for me to point out for you to see. So this
Yeah,
here,
because I can't see it either.
this here is the nurses station.
Yeah, okay,
This will be the glass wall.
all right,
So right now, there's a mechanical room sitting there.
yeah.
So these people can watch the crisis center.
Yeah, that
all
was
the
what
time.
they needed to do.
That's what they needed to do, yep. And at first, we were gonna try and leave the mechanical room and just move the furnaces, but in talking with Annie, she wanted it more open, so we were able, working with Scott, to move the mechanicals to the west and have a whole room for them, and Annie can get what she needs in that area.
Okay,
So essentially, a lot of the structures, the exam rooms through the top and along the east wall there, I mean, they're all in place. It's a matter of ripping some carpet up, painting, you know, changing a few things over, but it's nothing major, man. It's just, it's all stuff that can be done easy.
Tom,
In-house.
For my sake, would you show me what the various rooms are? Or can you tell me what the various rooms are? Because I studied this drawing and I
So
couldn't.
these are all exam rooms along here.
Okay.
Okay? Obviously, the entryway, this room here will be our mechanical room,
Okay.
where we'll move the 4 furnaces and the IT switch and the fiber to this room.
Okay.
Then you got a waiting room, a couple of conference room for the mental people that work with families. As you go down, you got a couple more of the same type rooms. We got a laundry room,
restrooms, I think.
yeah, restrooms, washer and dryer room for soil. This is the crisis center,
Okay.
where these nurses in this watch these 24/7. We
Yep.
have a check-in center right here.
Okay.
This is the entrance. You come in, this is a current entrance with a ramp, and we'll have full-time security right here.
Okay.
You have workrooms for nurses over on these sides, the three here, then you actually have 2 offices. People will be housed in the building.
Okay.
You have a break room, a conference room. Broadlawns will bring their own equipment in. This was just kind of, this is where OPM wanted to go with all the mechanicals and the IT. Where it was back here is why it's so costly. This is gonna be an open area for Broadlawns to bring their phone stuff in and hook their phone stuff up, and they will need to worry about, you know, the cable running and all that. That's their dedicated area. We have a mechanical room for the building, and then a storage room.
Okay.
And then, the front counter, there's a couple of triage rooms back here, and like a blood room back here. Okay. Where they'll draw some blood. Annie can speak more in depth, but that is the essential. And, Matt, to be honest, a lot of this is set up like this already.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like I'm taking a wrecking ball, going through the building and starting over. It's, I believe your costs come to the IT and fiber move and the HVAC, wanting to yank that out and start over.
Okay.
But it's honestly, it's just not ready.
All right.
So we will have a separate entrance there on the far end where the sobering center comes in.
So most all those people will be brought in through this ramp, and through this door, and come down this ramp, and down these doors. So we'll have secure door right here.
Okay.
I wondered where the door was.
Yeah, it's right here. So this place, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, 9 to 5, the front half will be open, and then we'll secure it here, and we'll secure it there, so nobody gets anywhere but those, and then, everybody comes in, will be brought in through the ramp, down the ramp.
And then, this little spot right sobering and crisis observation will come in through here at nighttime. Otherwise, they can come through here or the sobering.
And clear in the back in the corner on the right?
Yep,
What's,
conference room.
conference room?
And then a break room next.
Okay, and then, for the, we always wanted, like Lorna and her crew, what restroom is she gonna be able to use?
It is along this wall here.
Okay.
It's this one right here.
Okay, for the police officers?
Yep.
Okay, good.
And then the only other change we had is there was we have an office here and a restroom over here. Annie just wanted to switch those, but just put the extra bathroom up behind the sobering center area.
Okay, and they have to have showers too for the sobering center, because, a lot of times they soil themselves, they gotta be clean.
The two restrooms behind the sobering center will both have showers.
Okay, good.
And we will obviously have drains in the floor.
Yes.
We'll do the walls with FRP so it can just.
Yeah,
and a
hose them
so you
down
can
kind of
hose them
thing,
down.
yeah, that's what
And
needs to happen.
above that is where we probably need to add a little HVAC, a small air handling unit to suck out a little more ventilation, get
Yep.
rid of some of that stuff.
Right, yep,
Perfect.
very awesome that you guys can do it.
How many beds will be in, or, how many cots in the sobering center?
So the sobering center is slated for 10, but it can expand to 15.
Okay.
There'll be Jerry chairs, which can lay down.
Okay.
But also can be rolled in and shower off,
Okay,
if they should do anything to them.
okay.
And then the crisis observation center, we're planning on 8 to 10 beds there.
Okay.
And then-
Recliners, not beds.
There'll be recliners, but they're considered beds.
So how are you separating those two spaces, I guess, from the standpoint of, I heard there's a wall there that's
These are totally
an
different
entrance and
rooms.
wall, so they'll come in through different entrances,
So
except at night when they
at
come
night
in through the same?
ramp. Otherwise, they can either come in through the front door and be brought down to this entrance, or they can come in here and come over to crisis observation. So there'll be triage at crisis observation to determine which program is best for the individual, rather than the person or the police trying to decide which program to go to.
Okay.
Sorry.
What I was wondering, from the standpoint of the public, and having police vehicles and other emergency responders' vehicles, was the public wanting, the neighborhood, did they want a side entrance utilized or a back entrance utilized more?
They were more concerned about the sirens and the lights.
Okay.
But we don't use sirens and lights when you're
Right.
transporting, so that won't be an issue.
Okay,
That was their biggest concern, was having
Okay.
more sirens and lights in their neighborhood.
okay. Good. Well, it's a beautiful plan. That's great.
The only one thing we don't have right now is Snyder is on site. I saw him yesterday surveying the grounds. So once that's done, then we can get some construction documents developed, and we'll know how much green space we need to have according to city code.
Yeah,
Out in that- out in that parking lot.
I really hope that we can, make that so it add a lot more green space than it is now, because it's, so much concrete and building.
It
I think
is.
that'll help the neighborhood, so the more green space we can add, and I'm sure the city's gonna.
It's gonna
require-
be a city code. I was actually trying to shove it up as front of the building as I can, just for, I think, from a snow plowing aspect.
Oh, I'm
But
sure.
We're gonna put it where it needs to be.
Yeah, I just think it'll be aesthetically, we're gonna have to please the neighborhood a little bit more and
And
add more.
I had them survey the whole property and not just. I
That
thought it'd be-
area?
Yeah, just the half of that building. So I went ahead and had them survey the whole.
That's good, because St. John's is probably anxious to know where his property lines is too.
Yeah.
What's the timeline from start to,
If we got the okay, I would anticipate maybe like a July 1st start date.
okay,
And we'd be done by fall of '24,
okay,
if not sooner.
okay,
I plan on, no matter what, dedicating 6 people to that site, which is a
Okay.
lot of people for the square footage of this side. Obviously, I'll have electricians that'll be in there for 6 months, plumbers that are gonna be in there for 6 months, but as far as carpenter and maybe a skills trade assistant and some maintenance guys, dim walls, put up walls, I'd say July 1 to fall of 2024, we should be operational and ready to go, if not sooner. Everything goes well.
Wow.
Can I add one thing too?
Yeah.
So the CICS region, which goes around us, like Story County, Warren County, they have, their region has money, unlike our region, and they said that they would be willing to take it to their regional governing board to put some money towards this project. So I had Broadlands pull all the numbers for their 2 programs that are in operation right now, and they're about 6% of the total numbers of people who go there. And so, once we know the total project, I'm gonna request 6% of that cost to be paid for by that region and just see what they say. So, we'll be putting that out there too.
Great.
That's great.
Perfect.
Exciting.
That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, in closing, I think I'd like to point out a couple of things to you. We've had OPN's guidance and their technical guidance and things like that, but when you go back to these drawings that you see and things of that, now all of these graphics and drawings, the PowerPoint was put together 1,000% by Gail, and we were just kind of blown away. She just took it and ran with it. These drawings you were just looking at, Annie and Tom got together. You know, some of the greatest ideas in the planet were conceived on a bar napkin. I don't know if it was a bar napkin, but I saw them drawing everything by hand at our table, and they were drawing all this out by hand, and then there's some kind of machine, a magic machine that Tom won't tell anybody where it is, that does the actual CAD drawing. And so this was pretty much done in-house. And I also have to say that I'm in my 8th month now with you, and I'm privileged to work with. This has been a true team effort. This has been a partnership with department heads, all of them. We've collaborated nicely together on all this. It came together from nothing, and we've walked through it 1,000 times, along with the parking lot arms and all the other projects and things like that. I have to say I'm privileged to work with some very fine people who care very deeply about delivering for the taxpayers of our county. And it's a privilege to come to work and work with people who feel that way about their job.
Well, it's extremely ironic that the old Uncle Sam's building is now going to be a sobering center. Angela used to go there for penny beer night. I was home studying.
Oh my God.
You were home studying, did I hear that
Yeah,
correctly?
and if you all believe that,
Yeah.
he was home studying.
So,
I was out there drinking beer.
right. So with that, are there any further questions?
No, you did a great job.
Hearing none, well, I hope we pass the audition. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.